The night air hung heavy in our bedroom, the summer heat wave refusing to break even at 3 in the morning. I'd kicked off the sheets hours ago, but Mason slept soundly beside me, his chest rising and falling with the deep, steady rhythm of exhaustion. He'd been working late for weeks now, coming home with dark circles under his eyes and collapsing into bed without even a proper conversation. Sleep eluded me. I scrolled mindlessly through my phone, the blue light harsh against the darkness. Outside, a distant siren wailed, then faded. That's when I heard it, soft at first, barely audible over the hum of the ceiling fan. Vanessa. My thumb froze mid-scroll. I turned to look at Mason, but his eyes remained closed, his expression peaceful. Vanessa. Please, he mumbled again, clearer this time, his voice tender in a way I hadn't heard directed at me in months. A cold dread washed over me, despite the heat. In 7 years of marriage, I'd heard Mason talk in his sleep before, nonsensical fragments about work deadlines or forgotten errands. This was different. This was intimate. This was a name I'd never heard him mention. I set my phone down, the screen still illuminating his sleeping face, the face I thought I knew every line of. Who was Vanessa? And why did he say her name like that with such longing? I considered waking him, demanding answers in the vulnerability of night. Instead, I slipped out of bed, my bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. In our home office, Mason's laptop sat on the desk where he'd left it before coming to bed. I hesitated only briefly before opening it. Password protected. Of course, I tried our anniversary, failed. His birthday? Failed again. My birthday, nothing. The date we met, locked out. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking accusingly at me. After 7 years, I couldn't unlock my husband's computer. When I crawled back into bed, Mason had rolled onto his side, his back to me now. The space between us felt vast, an unbridgeable chasm. I lay awake until dawn broke, that name echoing in my mind. Vanessa. 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 The next morning, Mason kissed me quickly on the forehead before rushing out the door, travel mug of coffee in hand, the same as every workday for years. I might be late again tonight, he said, already halfway out the door. Big project. Don't wait up, I nodded, forcing a smile. Good luck with the project. The door closed behind him. I stood in our kitchen, my own coffee cooling in my hands, and wondered how many times I'd heard those exact words recently. How many nights had I eaten dinner alone, gone to bed alone, while this big project consumed him? I called in sick to the elementary school where I taught 3rd grade. My substitute could handle 1 day of long division and vocabulary. I had more important arithmetic to do, adding up the inconsistencies in Mason's behavior over the past few months. Later absences. Shorter conversations, shower fresh at odd hours. New cologne I didn't recognize. Protective of his phone, the classic signs I'd helped my best friend Caroline look for when she suspected her ex was cheating. I'd never thought I'd be doing the same inventory on my own marriage. I started methodical, the way I approached everything in life. Mason was a financial analyst at Bergman & Cole, so I called his office mid-morning. Hi, this is Ellie Reynolds, Mason's wife, I said to the receptionist. I need to drop off some documents he forgot, but I'm not sure if he's in a meeting. Oh, Mr. Reynolds is actually at the Hartford client site today, she said cheerfully. He's been splitting his time between there and the office for the big merger. Relief flooded through me. The big project was real. Maybe I was being paranoid. Of course, I said. The Hartford client. Remind me which one that is again? He talks about so many. Sinclair Technologies, she replied. They're keeping everyone busy these days. I thanked her and hung up, feeling slightly foolish. But as I set my phone down, I remembered. Hartford was only an hour away. Not far enough to explain the overnight trips Mason had mentioned twice in the past month. My relief evaporated. I opened my laptop and searched our joint credit card statements, something I normally left to Mason since he worked in finance. 4 charges at the Grand Hotel downtown in the past 2 months. Not Hartford. Not even close to Hartford. My hands trembled as I dialed the hotel. Grand Hotel, how may I assist you today? A polished voice answered. "Hi, I'm calling to confirm a reservation for tonight," I said, summoning every ounce of calm I possessed. "For Mason Reynolds." A brief pause, keyboard clicks. "Yes, Mrs. Reynolds, your husband has a reservation for tonight, standard king room. Would you like me to add any special requests to the booking?" My throat constricted. "No," I managed. "That won't be necessary. Thank you." I ended the call and sat motionless at our kitchen counter, the one we'd picked out together when we renovated 2 years ago. Mason had insisted on the quartz with subtle flecks of gold. Said it reminded him of my eyes in sunlight. I opened Instagram on my phone and searched Vanessa with Mason's company name. Nothing relevant. I tried his college, his hometown, his high school. On the 4th try, adding the city we lived in, I found her, Vanessa Keller. Raven hair cascading past her shoulders, green eyes that pierced even through a screen. Her profile was filled with artistic black and white photos, quotes about seizing life, and glimpses of a downtown lifestyle so different from our suburban existence. In one photo, she leaned against a bar, cocktail in hand, burgundy lips curved in a knowing smile. The location tag read, "The Gold Room at Grand Hotel." It took me 3 tries to enter the password to Mason's rarely used Instagram account that I knew from the times I'd helped him post family holiday photos. And there it was, he followed her. She followed him back. I scrolled through her followers and following lists. There were no comments from Mason on her photos, no obvious interactions. But something caught my eye. A photo from 2 months ago, a shadowy image of intertwined hands on white hotel sheets. No faces. No caption except a single heart. The first Grand Hotel charge on our credit card was from 2 days later. I closed the laptop, my teacher's instincts kicking in. I needed more evidence before confrontation. I needed to be certain. I dressed with care that evening, selecting a black dress Mason had complimented once. I applied makeup, styled my hair. In the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Not just the deliberate elegance, but the hardness in my eyes, the tension in my jaw. The Grand Hotel lobby was all marble and mirrors, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light across the space. I approached the front desk with practiced confidence. "I'm meeting my husband, Mason Reynolds," I told the concierge. "He mentioned he'd leave a key for me." The young man checked his computer. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Reynolds, but there's no key left for you. Mr. Reynolds checked in about an hour ago, room 718. Would you like me to call up?" "No need," I said smoothly. "I'll surprise him. It's our anniversary." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. Our real anniversary had passed 3 weeks ago with only a rushed dinner at home and a generic card. Mason had been swamped with work. I rode the elevator to the 7th floor, my heart thundering against my ribs. The hallway stretched before me, plush carpet muffling my steps. Outside room 718, I paused. From within came the low murmur of voices, then laughter. A woman's laughter, melodic and uninhibited. I had imagined this moment on the drive over. I'd knock dramatically, confront them both, unleash 7 years of betrayed trust in a torrent of righteous anger. Instead, I found myself frozen, hand raised midair, unable to bridge the final distance to the door. The truth waited on the other side, but once I faced it, nothing would ever be the same. Our history, our future, everything would be rewritten in an instant. My phone vibrated in my purse. A text from Mason, working late again. "Don't wait up. Love you." The screen blurred through my tears. Somewhere in our relationship, I had become so inconsequential that he couldn't even bother to create elaborate lies. Just the same dismissive text, while he sat a few feet away from me with another woman. I lowered my hand and backed away from the door. I wasn't ready. Not yet. In the hotel bar, the gold room from Vanessa's photo, I ordered a whiskey neat, something I never drank. The bartender raised an eyebrow but served without comment. The liquor burned a path down my throat, settling like fire in my stomach. Rough day? The man who slid onto the stool beside me was around my age, his suit slightly rumpled, tie loosened. "Rough life," I replied, surprising myself with the candor. He clinked his glass against mine. I'm Daniel. Ellie. What brings you to this overpriced establishment, Ellie? I stared into my drink. My husband is upstairs in room 718 with a woman named Vanessa. Daniel blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Wow, I'm sorry. Me too. I took another burning sip. What about you? Divorce proceedings. My soon-to-be ex's lawyer works in the building next door. We just finished a particularly unpleasant negotiation session. We sat in companionable silence, two strangers united by matrimonial disaster. Have you confronted him yet? Daniel finally asked. I shook my head. I came here ready for a showdown, but when I got to the door, I couldn't do it. I don't even know who I am right now. You're someone whose world just imploded, he said simply. You don't have to know who you are or what to do right this second. The elevator doors across the lobby opened. Mason stepped out, his arm around a woman with long, dark hair. Vanessa. Even from this distance, I could see she was more stunning in person than in her photos. Tall, graceful, vibrant in a way that made everything around her seem slightly duller. They crossed to the hotel entrance without glancing toward the bar, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back, the same hand that had brushed away my tears when my father died, that had held mine at the altar, that had once written love notes I kept in my bedside drawer. That's them, I whispered. Daniel followed my gaze. What do you want to do? I want to understand, I said, the words catching in my throat. I want to know what happened to us. When I became someone he could do this to. After they disappeared through the revolving doors, I drained my glass and stood. I need to see the room. Are you sure that's a good idea? Daniel asked, concern evident in his voice. No, I admitted. But I need to know. I approached the front desk again, a different clerk this time. I'm afraid I've locked myself out of room 718, I said. My husband just left for dinner, and I was supposed to meet him, but I forgot my key. The clerk hesitated. I'll need to see some ID, ma'am. I handed over my driver's license. Its address matching the one in their system for Mason. A moment later, I had a key card. Good luck, Daniel called softly from the bar as I walked toward the elevators. Room 718 was immaculate. The bed was made. No evidence of its recent occupation except for a single long, dark hair on the pristine white pillowcase. I stood in the center of the room, absorbing every detail. The view of the city skyline, so different from our suburban outlook. The bottle of expensive champagne chilling in an ice bucket. The faint, lingering scent of an unfamiliar perfume. In the bathroom, I found her mark, a smudge of burgundy lipstick on a hand towel. The same shade from her Instagram photo. I opened the closet, empty except for Mason's garment bag, the one I'd given him for his birthday last year. I unzipped it. Inside hung his gray suit for tomorrow, a fresh shirt, his toiletry bag. I reached for the inside pocket where he always kept his important documents. There, in a slim leather portfolio, I found it. A life I didn't recognize. A lease agreement for an apartment downtown under Mason's name, dated 6 months ago. Bank statements from an account I never knew existed. And photos, Mason and Vanessa in locations I didn't recognize, looking at each other with undisguised adoration. In one image, they stood on a beach at sunset, his arms wrapped around her from behind, both laughing at something beyond the frame. The background looked like the Amalfi Coast, where Mason had supposedly gone for a business conference 3 months ago. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the evidence of his double life spread across my lap. My hands trembled as I examined a receipt for a jewelry store, a diamond pendant purchased 2 weeks ago. For our anniversary, perhaps. Just not for me. I gathered everything and returned it exactly as I'd found it. In the elevator down, I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The truth I'd sought now sat like a stone in my chest. In the lobby, Daniel was waiting. You look like you could use a friend right now, he said gently. I nodded, unable to speak. Come on, he said. Let's get you somewhere safe. Over the next week, I lived in a strange limbo. I went to work, taught my students, smiled at my colleagues. At home, I ate dinner with Mason when he was there. listened to his stories about the Hartford client, and pretended I didn't see the text notifications he quickly dismissed when they flashed across his phone. Each night, he whispered "I love you" before falling asleep. And each night I lay awake, wondering how those words could still pass so easily from his lips. I told no one, not even Caroline, though she noticed something was wrong during our weekly coffee meetup. "You seem distracted," she said, studying my face. "Is everything okay with Mason?" "Just tired," I replied, the lie coming easily now. End of the school year chaos. I'd spent my evenings meticulously gathering information. The downtown apartment was real. I'd driven by it 3 times, once catching a glimpse of Vanessa entering the building with grocery bags. The separate bank account had regular transfers dating back 8 months. Their relationship timeline emerged through careful investigation. They'd met at a company event last fall, around the time Mason's behavior began to change. Daniel had become an unexpected ally. We met for coffee twice, and I found myself pouring out the whole story to this stranger who was rapidly becoming a friend. He listened without judgment, offering practical advice from his own experience with infidelity. "At some point," he told me during our second meeting, "you'll have to decide what you want: reconciliation, divorce, or something in between. But take your time. This decision shouldn't be made in the heat of emotion." On the 10th day after discovering Mason's whispered confession, I made my decision. It wasn't based on anger or revenge, but on a clarity that had gradually emerged from the chaos. I knew what I needed. That evening, I prepared Mason's favorite meal: herb-crusted salmon, roasted potatoes, asparagus. I opened a bottle of the Pinot Noir we'd discovered on our honeymoon. I set the table with our wedding china, unused for years. Mason arrived home earlier than usual, surprise evident on his face when he found me in the dining room with candles lit. "What's all this?" he asked, loosening his tie. "I thought we deserved a nice dinner," I said, pouring him a glass of wine. "It's been a while since we really talked." Wariness flickered in his eyes, quickly replaced by a smile. "It smells amazing. Let me just wash up." Over dinner, I steered the conversation toward memories: our first apartment, road trips, holidays with my parents before my father passed. Mason relaxed as we reminisced, the guilt that had shadowed his face lately temporarily lifting. "Remember that little B&B in Vermont?" I asked, refilling his glass. "The one with the ridiculous floral wallpaper and the amazing blueberry pancakes?" He laughed. "How could I forget? We got snowed in for 2 extra days." "Best snow day ever," I said, smiling at the memory. After dinner, as he helped me clear the plates, I touched his arm. "Mason, there's something we need to talk about." He stiffened slightly but nodded. We moved to the living room, sitting on opposite ends of the couch, the distance between us both physical and metaphorical. "I know about Vanessa," I said simply. The color drained from his face. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words emerged. "I know about the apartment downtown," I continued, my voice steady. "I know about the trips, the hotel, all of it. Ellie, I held up my hand. Please don't insult me with lies." "Not anymore." He seemed to collapse inward, shoulders hunching as if under a physical weight. "How did you find out?" "You said her name in your sleep." A bitter laugh escaped him. "Of course I did." "How long have you been planning to leave me?" I asked. The question seemed to catch him off guard. "What?" "The apartment lease, the separate bank account. These aren't signs of a casual affair, Mason. This is methodical. You've been building an exit strategy." He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache despite everything. "It's complicated." "Actually, it's not," I said. "You fell in love with someone else and didn't have the courage to tell me. Instead, you constructed this elaborate double life while I sat here thinking we were just going through a rough patch." "I never meant to hurt you," he said, the cliché falling flat between us. "That might be the worst part," I replied. "You didn't consider me enough to worry about hurting me. I became an afterthought in my own marriage." "That's not true," he protested, leaning forward. "I care about you, Ellie. I always have. Just not enough to be honest with me." I took a deep breath. "Is she pregnant?" His startled expression answered before his words did. How did you know? The timing of the apartment, the sudden urgency of your plans. It made sense. Mason looked down at his hands. 3 months along. We didn't plan it. But you're happy about it, I said. A statement rather than a question. After a long pause, he nodded. I am. The confirmation hit harder than I expected, stealing my breath momentarily. I'd suspected as much, had even prepared for this answer, but hearing him admit his happiness about building a family with another woman pierced something vital inside me. I want a divorce, I said when I could trust my voice again. I've already spoken with an attorney. The papers will be ready next week. Relief flickered across his face before he could hide it. I'll make this as easy as possible for you, he said. The house, whatever you want. I don't want the house, I interrupted. Too many memories. I've found an apartment near the school. I move in next month. Confusion replaced relief. You've already found a place? Unlike you, I've only been planning this for a week, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. But yes, I've made arrangements. I'm sorry, he said, and for the first time that night, he sounded genuinely remorseful. You deserved better than this. Yes, I agreed. I did. We sat in silence for several minutes, the remnants of our marriage settling around us like dust. There's something else, I finally said. I met someone, Mason's head snapped up. What? When? The night I followed you to the Grand Hotel. I saw recognition dawn on his face. I didn't approach you and Vanessa. Instead, I met a man named Daniel in the bar. He's going through a divorce, too. Are you involved with him? Mason asked, looking both shocked and slightly indignant. We've had coffee, I said. Nothing more. But I like him, and once my divorce is final, who knows? The point is, I can imagine a future beyond us now. A week ago, I couldn't. Mason absorbed this, nodding slowly. I hope he's good to you. I hope Vanessa is good to you, I replied. And to your child. He looked at me with something like wonder. How are you so calm about all this? Don't mistake composure for absence of pain, I said quietly. But what would falling apart accomplish? You've made your choice. I'm making mine. Later, after Mason had packed an overnight bag and left, to the downtown apartment, presumably, I sat alone in our bedroom, the weight of the evening settling over me. I opened my bedside drawer and took out the small collection of love notes from our early years together. One by one, I read them, allowing myself to remember the hope and promise they'd once contained. Then I returned them to the drawer. They were part of my history now, not my future. I picked up my phone and texted Daniel. It's done. I told him everything. His reply came almost immediately. How are you holding up? Surprisingly okay, I answered truthfully. Would you like to get breakfast tomorrow? I'd like that very much. I set my phone down and looked around the room that had been mine, ours, for 7 years. Tomorrow I would begin packing. Tomorrow I would take the first steps into whatever came next. But tonight, for the first time in months, I would sleep peacefully, no longer carrying the weight of someone else's secrets. The gallery buzzed with conversation and the gentle clinking of champagne glasses. My photographs lined the walls, stark black and white images capturing moments of transition. A bird mid-flight, a wave cresting before it breaks, a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis. Photography had been a forgotten passion from my college days, rediscovered in the aftermath of my divorce as a way to process my changing reality. What began as therapy had evolved into something more, this small exhibition in a local gallery being the latest milestone. These are extraordinary, said a voice behind me. I turned to find Daniel, handsome in a charcoal suit, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. Though I'm biased since I'm dating the artist, I accepted the glass with a smile. Your bias is much appreciated. The reviews agree with me, he said, nodding toward a group of people intensely discussing one of my larger pieces, a diptych showing hands releasing a dove. Ellie Reynolds is the new name to watch in contemporary photography. I laughed. Let's not get carried away. It's one small exhibition. It's a beginning, he corrected, his eyes warm with pride. Over his shoulder, I caught a glimpse of an unexpected face. Mason stood near the entrance, taking in one of my photographs with a thoughtful expression. Beside him, Vanessa cradled a small bundle against her shoulder. Their son, just 2 months old according to the birth announcement Mason had sent, a gesture of reconciliation I'd appreciated. Our divorce had been finalized 8 months ago, surprisingly amicable once we'd moved past the initial pain. Mason had been generous in the settlement, insisting I take more than I asked for. "You gave me 7 good years," he'd said during our last meeting with the lawyers. "That's worth something." Daniel followed my gaze. "Do you want to say hello?" I considered for a moment. "Yes, I think I do." We crossed the gallery together, Daniel's hand a reassuring presence at the small of my back. "Mason," I said as we approached. "I'm surprised to see you here." He turned, genuine pleasure lighting his features. "Ellie, the invitation came to the old address. I hope it was okay to come." "Of course," I said, meaning it. "It's good to see you." "This is extraordinary work," he said, gesturing to the photographs. "I always knew you were talented, but this is something special." "Thank you," I said, then turned to Vanessa. "And this must be James." She smiled tentatively, adjusting the blanket to reveal a tiny sleeping face. "Yes, he just dozed off. Would you like to see him?" I stepped closer, looking down at the infant, a perfect blend of his parents with Mason's brow and Vanessa's delicate nose. "He's beautiful," I said, surprised by my genuine reaction. There was no pain in seeing this child, only a distant awareness of a path not taken. "Congratulations to you both," Daniel said, extending his hand to Mason, then Vanessa. "He's a remarkable little guy." An awkward moment passed as the 4 of us stood there, our unconventional connection hanging in the air between us. "We won't stay long," Mason said. "We just wanted to support your big night." "I appreciate that," I replied. "Enjoy the exhibition." As they moved away, Daniel squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I watched Mason and Vanessa examining another photograph, their heads bent close together, their son nestled between them. Once that sight would have shattered me. Now it was simply another composition, a family portrait that didn't include me. "You know what?" I said, turning back to Daniel. "I really am." Later that night, as we walked hand in hand through the crisp autumn air toward the restaurant where friends waited to celebrate the exhibition's success, Daniel stopped suddenly under a street lamp. "I've been wanting to ask you something," he said, uncharacteristically nervous. "It might be too soon, and if it is, just tell me." I pressed a finger to his lips. "It's not too soon." Relief washed over his face. "You don't even know what I'm going to ask." "I have a pretty good idea," I said, smiling. "And my answer is yes." Daniel laughed. "You're sure?" "I could have been about to ask if you want to get a puppy. Were you?" "No," he admitted, reaching into his pocket to produce a small velvet box. "I was going to ask if you'd marry me." I looked at the simple, elegant ring nestled inside, so different from the ornate diamond Mason had chosen years ago. Different, but perfect in its own way. "Like I said," I whispered as he slipped it onto my finger, "my answer is yes." As we continued our walk, snow began to fall, delicate flakes drifting through the golden glow of streetlights. I tilted my face upward, letting them melt against my skin. Each tiny crystal a reminder that endings are often disguised beginnings, waiting to be discovered. Behind us, the gallery window displayed my favorite photograph from the exhibition. A woman standing at the threshold of an open door, her face in shadow, her posture conveying not hesitation, but anticipation. I had titled it simply, "Forward."
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.